Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining me tonight on a very special edition of Spanning the Need with Anthony Spano, the Mayoral Candidate Speaker Series, presented by Sherman Creative. During this speaker series, we're going to be discussing issues with all of the candidates for the mayor's race of the city of Youngstown, both Democratic and Republican. And this is the primary for May 4th, so we're going to get right to the issues and everything. So let's get started. Tonight we're going to be talking with Democratic candidate Ryan Kelly. Ryan, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Anthony.
Well, and we're going to talk about, just so everyone's aware, we're going to talk about all sorts of issues, and everyone will get the same questions for all the candidates, so everyone can have the same answers and be judged by our viewers and by the public. So let's get started. Ryan, just tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you for having us on, having all of us on. I think it's really important that you're using your platform like this to really educate all the voters in Youngstown. There's not as many platforms. Well, actually, there's a ton of platforms. I'm glad that you're using yours to educate voters. But I'll start by saying I'm a graduate of Ursuline High School. I also attended Youngstown State University. I've been a lifelong football guy, a football coach. Played at Ursuline, coached at Ursuline up through last football season. I've been a business owner. I actually bought my first Belleria with my graduation money. So right after the fall after we graduated high school, I bought my Belleria, and kind of my partner Andrew Frasco and I, and the Frasco family, we've been partners since then, coming up on 15 years now. So it's been a crazy 15 years. We've owned Bellerias anywhere from Girard, Warren, Columbiana, and now we do have the one in Columbiana and Hubbard. And I've also owned Kelly's Bar, Mahoning Avenue. We owned that for about 5 years. It's now Hackett. So I mean, it's been a very big learning experience for 15 years. It's been, it's awesome that things that I found time to go to college in that time, but I mean, there's things that lessons that you can't get in school.
Yeah, and you're a City of Youngstown resident, and you've been a part of the city for a long time, like all the candidates. And you've been living in the city for how long? How long have you been living in the city?
My whole life.
So you kind of have some experience with the city in a variety of different ways. So why do you feel that you're the best candidate to be mayor?
I think we're at a unique time right now in the city of Youngstown. The last time we were coming off a pandemic. It was 1921, and there was 121,000 people. So we're not even at a crossroads. We're at a territory we've never seen before. So that whoever becomes mayor in this next term in 2022, they're going to be facing a time with the lowest population ever. You're coming off a pandemic. We are now been labeled the poorest city in America. So I mean, this is literally it's not a great time on paper to become the mayor of Youngstown. But for me, I see this is opportunity like we may have never had, and truly I believe that. I think being able to work and rebuild something, and really not just rebuild but build something for the future. And I think I'm a person I'm married now. My wife Elizabeth and I we're talking. We're in the process of starting a family. So I want to truly build something where I could raise my family here, because I knew how special that process was to me.
And we know that we talk about the presidency of the United States, the first 100 days are the most important. At the city level, they say the first 90 days is the most important. What would be some of your plans in the first 90 days if elected?
So the first thing is, and it's been a big part of my campaign thus far. I want to run a very united campaign. So whether we're dealing with business, neighborhoods, crime, economic, whatever you want to talk about, it's united with it's Youngstown, everything. So for me, I think the businesses are very important. They're not absolutely number one, but given the coming off a pandemic and where we're at with the economy, I do think reaching out to every single business in Youngstown, and I literally mean every single business, A through Z, and we need to say, are you healthy? Can you are you healthy enough to sustain in 2022? You know, what's 2023 look like for you? Do you want to grow? Do you have aspirations to grow? What's your barriers that would prevent you from growing? Because again, let's start the process of building right now. But first things first is let's make sure that they're healthy, that their business is healthy. And then, you know, the next step is, again, it's let's take a look at where we're at financially. I think we have to hit the ground completely running. We're going to have an opportunity to really take advantage of like funding for growth, not funding for survival. And I think, you know, we were blessed to have, you know, to have funds given to us through the state and through the federal and through our federal partners to be able to get through this pandemic. But again, we don't need act of God money just to pay the bills. We want to be able to really survive, thrive, and then hit the ground running to get ready for, you know, future growth and development.
Well, and I think that brings a great point to the next question is you're a business owner,
Mhm.
okay, not and how do you create a vibrant economy in the city? Because like you just mentioned, we've lost population over the
Yep.
last 30 years.
hmm Well, so you know, the one of the big things you'll hear go if you're doing what I'm doing right now and you're out meeting different stakeholders and you're trying to talk to people who you may want to bring into the city, I think you constantly hear, well, you know, this two and three quarter, 2.75 income tax, and you know, the crime. It's when it all comes together, the schools. So first of all, when it comes to the income tax, that is a barrier. It is a barrier. It's something, but it it's no longer the highest in the state of Ohio. Number one. Number two, it's something that people want value for what they're paying for. So again, if they're going to pay 2.75%, then you better make sure that we do have a reduction in crime. We are making efforts with schools. We are getting creative with what we're doing for business. We are supportive. And now listen, it's not we're not talking about just Youngstown not being great with economic development and having it's a struggle for a lot of communities, and this isn't a slight on the government. This governments of these communities, it's just the resources aren't always there, and as much as there's a bunch of grants and a bunch of different avenues, it's hard to find people that are able to kind of fill out the paperwork, go out and chase those things. So I think what you got to do is you just have to have unique approach and a unique approach to these different challenges. And I think to create that economy, you started at home and you start to get people in Youngstown. You have a plan. You don't just have development for the sake of development. I think we have to have a really strong plan. I think we had the basis of a really strong plan written in 2005, and it was the 2010 plan, but it's 2021. And what strategic plan are we operating off of? Now, I think a lot of the things in that 2010 plan still reign true today. And I think I mean, I read the 2010 plan often, and really just because I mean it's well done, but it resonates almost today, you know, somewhat more than ever. So it's just you're kind of updating some things here and there. But again, here's where you stimulate your economy, and you stimulate anything. I know Jim Tressel is going to be there. I hope he's there in 2022. I'll do whatever he can from the mayor to keep him there, and he's a dynamic guy. If he's there, we need his help, and we need his vision and partnering with that vision. I think we have kids, generations are kind of recycling here, and we got to be able to give these kids something. We got to put them on the right path, and that's where we start to grow everything. So again, to answer your question the long way around, it's with Youngstown. It's with Youngstown,
Okay.
keeping people
No,
here.
right. And we talked about your first 90 days and everything.
hmm
And I think one thing that resonates is what is that first order going to be? Like, as soon as you get elected, what's that? what's the immediate change that you would do on
I'm
your very
going,
first day?
yeah, I'm gonna, whether it's changing the charter or whatever it is, we're gonna ban the phrase, "This is how we've always done it." And I think it's very important to me that we are taking, and I think as much as it's people are being, and they're going to be, and they should be critical of, hey, what does this pizza guy know about being the mayor? Well, what I bring to it is I'm a person that's going to ask. I'm going to ask, why are we doing it this way? And I've always been a person you can ask anybody who's ever worked for me. I will listen to anything anybody has to say. I but for me, the answer can't be, again, this is the way we've always done it. That's not good enough for me, because that tells me you don't believe in it, you don't understand the process, and just people, when you need strong leadership in urban cities and in municipalities, because you have to understand most cities are operating on a 75 to 80-year-old template, and that's the government. And we need to start shifting it. We need to bring it into the next generation. And I think that is the value of having someone. And yeah, it happens to be a younger guy, but if it's someone that hasn't been involved in government, there's the value of it.
Well, and I think we talk about things that you want to change, what experience you bring in, and I think one thing is the last couple months there's been a lot of violence
Hmm.
in the city of Youngstown. What steps would you take to curb the violence in our city, in the community? Because you know how it is. Once all that affects the outer rim of our
Hmm.
community.
Yeah. So the big thing is, and that's one of the major change. We have to change the narrative, obviously, and that's one of the major parts of changing that narrative. So for me, I think a major misconception in our society is that we don't like rules, and everyone hates rules. And it's just, what people really hate is rules inconsistently enforced. And I think, again, I said this when I filled out a questionnaire. I'll say it at a form later. If how policing needs to be is, if I run a stop sign, or Mayor Brown runs a stop sign, or Julius Oliver runs a stop sign, we all get pulled over for running a stop sign. So I know that there's been a lot of different um, you know racial initiatives, and there needs to be, and every initiative that I read in the paper is good, but we need to continue to build, again, not put up barriers to have cooperation in the city. I think those are a lot of strong, powerful voices that I have a ton of respect for. And I would like to see cooperation with different stakeholders and different community leaders to kind of really, again, what could we do to help in the future? Now, for me, I think, again, you have to be proactive. You do have to be proactive. You do have to be proactive with crime. You know, I just saw the city of Atlanta. They had a traffic enforcement. Uh, they're going to be an award-winning group in the city of Atlanta. The Traffic Enforcement Initiative, I believe, was the name of their group, and they had 2,300 citations they've given out, people, like vehicles pulled over since January 1st through the middle of February. And again, when they're pulling people over for actual traffic violations, literally in there, the commander is a minority. He said, we don't have time to see race. And again, that's not those issues aren't acceptable. But at the end of the day, we can't have anybody's mother on TV crying, and that's what's not okay. And I think, that's why when I say my campaign is a united campaign, I think, because it's every person is a stakeholder, and how and are kind of get revitalizing Youngstown and changing the narrative.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point about revitalizing how the city has in the Youngstown state has changed
Hmm.
over the last 10 years. I remember before I moved to the city of Youngstown, downtown wasn't what it was.
Hmm.
And so if someone comes to you with a proposal to build a new business or project in the city, who would you entrust to evaluate that project if it's worth implementing? Because you only have so much resources.
Yeah. So I mean, I definitely, for me, I think, and I'm not going to talk around this. I'm going to get to this question. Honestly, I think the one of the major things, uh, I talked about it the other day on social media. We look at all the things that we've produced in the past, and we get so lost in what the things we've lost and looking for that next big commodity. And one of the major things that we have really produced, and it's our best commodity we produce, and it's elite level talent. And we've always produced elite level talent, and we've really forced, almost in a way, that talent to thrive everywhere but home. And so, not just keeping people here, I've talked about early when I wanted to keep, Youngstown kids here. I want to keep, I want to bring some of people back home, but there is good people. There's good commercial development. I mean, we have people, we invented the malls in these different areas, again. So, we have good, good urban planners here. We do have we have a 2010 plan. A lot of the stakeholders are still here. A lot of the people who were, instrumental in developing that plan. And again, see, you can get it from every single perspective. But at the end of the day, I've been involved in some, on the business side of it. So there will not be development just for the sake of development again. And what I mean when I say that is we have to have a plan. We have to have a plan. And, a partnership with the university is great. And partnering with anybody downtown, it's great. But what are we going to do moving forward? And I think, again, when you talk about bringing businesses in, we've done a great job with eliminating blight. And, we need to now take that next step to repurposing some of these different areas, getting them zoned and ready for projects. Again, I think it's time that we say, oh, look at these broken down steel mills, and we start to get this land ready to go. We have some neighborhoods that nobody lives in anymore. Let's get them ready. Let's get that land repurposed. And it's like, I want to be able to say, oh, if we're mass producing vaccines somewhere, well, why not here? Why not here? Why not this little area? We got it ready to go.
Well, and I think that actually that kind of makes the shift to the next question. Just adding on to theirs is, you talk about attracting business, okay, to the city. Is there a plan that you may have that you're able to share with us and share with the audience of what your plan would be to attract new business?
Yeah. So again, I mean, growth starts at home. I think we could grow from within. And as I said, when I call every business in Youngstown, that's not something I'm going to do in the first 90 days. That's something I'm going to do in the first 90 days of all 4 years and plus that I'm in City Hall. So again, that's the way I grow my business. I focus on my customer database, and I'll focus the same way again. So, what could we do? How can my first 90 days at Bellaria are focused on how can I get, Anthony Spano to order. He orders $20 on average a week. How can I get him to order one more day or spend $5 more? And again, so that's the same way I want to see. What can we do to help our current businesses grow? And then we're going to go in the county and we're going to make them same phone calls. So we're going to try to grow from within and grow at home. Again, I think being not hiding from any priority, and again, if we say it's a priority, if we say crime's a priority, we're gonna have a metric to measure it. If you don't measure it, it doesn't really mean anything to you, and that's how we've always been. So any initiative we do, we're not going to talk about it because it sounds good. We're going to actually have plans and implement them. Whether it be crime, we're not going to hide from the schools. It's a major part of economic development. It's a major part of why people want to move here. We're going to find ways to get people here. We're going to try to keep people here.
And you've talked a little bit about what you would do in 90 days. And as you know, the mayor has appointing privileges for certain specific positions within the city government. What challenges are paramount for you and your administration when you take office, and if you're elected? What are some of those challenges that you see?
So, again, we're coming off a pandemic. We are the poorest city in America. That's a 2019 study. So I think there's absolutely the biggest challenge is starting now with the generation today. Start with the next generation at least and get them on the right path. And I've always been, as I said, I'm a football coach, and I've always so helping kids and the youth, it means a lot to me. It's had the biggest part of my heart. So I've seen the difference you can make, and I've seen where we're at now and with kids these days. And I feel like shouldn't be old enough to say that, but it's, it's so different because I call it the Google generation, where it's not like it used to be in terms of you can't, if they don't see it, they don't believe it. And it's hard to sell an idea and sell belief. You got to show them an opportunity and really, but that's also the beautiful part of right now. And the unique thing is we could show them that there's opportunity. We could show them that they could be financially fit. We could show them that they can have home ownership. We could show them that, again, we could be a united city. They only know what they see. So, I mean, we have a first impression with a new generation and that's where we have to start day one.
And I think that, and there's so many things out there you've hit on from across the board. And one thing you talked about, the population. And I think that's a real big thing because Youngstown used to be the thriving epicenter of the Mahoning Valley back in the 60s, 70s, the 20s. And in the last 30 years, we've lost a good chunk of our population due to job loss or multiple other issues. For example, I was on the park commission probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and we had a park system that was serving 165,000 people when we only have 65,000 that are actually living, well, give or take, within the city, which is close to what the population is now. Is it necessary to restructure city government to serve the necessary residents, or what would your suggestion be?
So again, that's something that has to be looked at. It was one of the major questions that was asked in the 2010 plan, and it was kind of, if you look, it was kind of the part of the plan. There was a couple items that were like tabled. We'll talk about this later. We want to address all the things that are kind of important, and we'll talk about the rest later. But again, that's an important question that needs asked. We have to right size city government? Okay, and for me, I don't know what that answer is today, because I know what I want I want to grow to meet the infrastructure that we already have in place. That's in a perfect world, and maybe that's the trees through which we'll never know the shade type deal. But honestly, I think we do have some good neighborhoods that are still in place. I think we do have a lot of areas of need where we have council that could fit constituents that still need fighting for. There is 7 wards of the city that still need people to represent them. And I think if you see that, just the neighborhood groups and stuff, you hear those different things. So on one hand, when you absolutely have the right size government, on the other side, it's like we got to get in there and see where else do cuts need made. What the problem is, we do, which what you said earlier is 100% right. We have the infrastructure for 300,000 people, and whether that's the neighborhoods and the neighborhoods down to the actual infrastructure of it. So we got to get creative. I think we got to get in there and really and ask those questions. Why are we doing things? What's the reason? Is there a more efficient way right now? I know we check a lot of boxes when it comes to grants and federal aid, and given regardless of what anybody thought and where anybody stood on the presidential election, I'm not getting into there, but irregardless, we have an opportunity to really work with, an administration that's going to want to work with an urban city like ours. But it doesn't matter who's in there. I know that we're missing out on some federal dollars, and we have to partner with the university, which is one of our major assets. Partner with different neighborhood groups, YNDC. Partner with the Oak Hill Collaborative. You name it, we'll partner with all of them, and we're going to get things done.
And I'll kind of end with that. We'll make sure that we get all the questions answered. And And I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I know trying to get everyone in schedules is an interesting commodity, especially during pandemic. Is there anything you'd like to close on? Kind of want to give a closing a closing statement?
you hit on it a little bit earlier. It's when when you talked about crime, and I will never use, I won't use my a platform like this to speak on the different tragedies that are going on. But I'll say the big thing for me when I decided to run for mayor, the number one thing that put me over the edge was being able to look myself in the mirror and say, if the worst case scenario for doing this is that I got out and I met people and I talked to people in neighborhoods and I heard their problems and I heard their solutions and I gave some of my problems and my solutions, and it moved us closer to giving opportunities to my family here. As long as that can happen, and I can make sure that my character and my value system, those are way more important than me being mayor. But if all those things, if that's the worst case scenario, it happens May 4th, then I'm okay with that. So, you know, I'm here because I want to hear I want to hear people's problems. I want to hear people's solutions. I know there's still people fighting in these neighborhoods, and right now I'm working on trying to get a grant for some of these neighborhood block watch groups, because we've had so many casualties and so many victims of the pandemic, and another casualty can't be these neighborhood block watches. And they're the last line of defense. And whether it be the resources or just whatever we could do to try to help and facilitate that, because I've watched the special work they do. But Anthony, again, I thank you for having us on here and getting our message out, and anything you could do, and any questions any of your viewers or any listeners have, please do not hesitate to reach out.
Ryan, how do they reach out to you? Website? What do you got for if people want to look you up and everything like that?
Again, we are on Facebook. You can see it. Our Facebook page is live now. Our Facebook page is live. It's Ryan Kelly for Mayor. Pretty easy to understand there. We do have the website, RyanKellyForMayor.com. We got ahead on these domain names here. RyanKellyForMayor.com. You could email us at RyanKellyForMayor@gmail.com. And we also, because we're getting creative with everything with the pandemic and people, we don't want to just kind of, we're gonna knock on every door we can. I'm gonna try to knock on as many doors as I can, but not everyone wants us to come in with the pandemic, or at least we'll talk through the doors. But either way, you can call us 330-261-2118. Again, 330-261-2118. I want to talk to you. That's my number one priority from now until May 4th is using this platform to hear people's problems and also hear their solutions, because that's where my problems are solved by the people in my business every day, by the people who are dealing with the problems, and somewhere in there that we find a good solution together. So I want to hear from these people in the neighborhoods and hear from somebody on Nielsen, on Dewey, on Lucius. Tell me what we could do.
Well, I appreciate you taking your time. At the end of each podcast, I like to have some fun with my guests. You up for a little have some fun with some fun questions?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So I think this is great. So people could get to know, no matter if you're a candidate running or just a normal individual. So I'll ask you a question. The answer can be professional or personal. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just what your thoughts are. So.
Okay.
What's your best accomplishment?
Fine. I'm marrying my wife. If you'll see that I'll kick my coverage there. So.
Okay. Check mark for the wife. Just make sure.
Yep.
Best memory.
My best memory. Oh, you put me on the spot here with these ones here.
These are more tougher than probably the other ones.
Honestly, yeah. I'm in such an election mode. Again, I'm going short term. And I'm not trying to kiss up to my wife here again in this problem. You got my wedding, but we spent throughout the pandemic. It was so hard. I went to Disney World for the first time, and it was something my wife she always wanted me to do. She'd been, and it was just an awesome 5 days. So I have to stick with short-term memory. It was that, but I mean, also I have so many football and sports memories, from Ursa and my time playing, and so probably something between that and something like that in there.
Okay, nothing wrong with that. Best experience.
Um, Honestly, my best experience and the best experience I've had outside my true personal life is getting to really coach kids. And this is not a political answer. Like I've gotten to see every part of being a football coach. You got to see so many different sides of things, and I got to be put in situations where you're taking kids to different universities, and just so for me, I look at it as a sportsman and a sporting coach. I mean, I played in the state championship game my senior year, and I'm not a guy that I'm not Al Bundy. I don't I'm not a high. I'm not. I don't still talk about my high school times, but again,
Hokai.
yeah, you and honestly, like I said, and as soon as anybody sees this, they're gonna mess with me a little bit. But we had a classmate. We had a classmate that passed away, one of my best friends, and so like we've been really talking about high school football over this past weekend, and he was a captain with me. But it was, that whole experience from we didn't, we made the playoffs my freshman year, didn't make it, and just when we said we were going to win a state champion or go to a state championship, everyone laughed at us because they were like, make the playoffs first. So that was probably one of the best experiences of my life.
Okay. Who's your role model?
My role model, kind of my parents tied in there. My mom has always been a major role model to me. She's a breast cancer survivor. She has the perfect mix of she'll outwork anybody and do whatever she can to get something done, but it's mixed with the right amount of empathy that you need, I think, in everything. And to see my dad, he's a guy, he's the police chief of Camel. He's been a cop. But he's done everything the right way, and the way his character and the way he's lived his life. I think everybody thinks they have the perfect parents, but I mean, I know I have the perfect parents in that way, but I got throw my grandpa Skip in there, and everybody knows. That's anybody who knows me and knows my grandpa will just know where that one's going.
I understand. Okay, and the last one. If there was one person you would want to meet, past or present, who would it be and why?
You're setting me up to make these answers so political because that's where my mind goes. I'm an obsessive guy. Right now, I'm all politics because my answer right now would be Tip O'Neill because I read this book, All Politics Are Local, and it's I'm telling you right now, it was literally a treasure that I you can't believe that you got to look it up. All politics are local, but prior to that, honestly, again, my answers, I've always loved politics. So it would probably be what would be a former president or somewhere in there during the pandemic. I got those. Now, I also think it would be hilarious to sit with like a Danny McBride or if we were just Chris Farley, because I've watched, just watching Black Sheep recently and picturing whether it's my brother as as Black Sheep or a couple of guys that are close to me. Looking at from that perspective, it's really funny. But yeah, so you're making me sound like so these answers, because my brain is it's now so like politically focused on these things. I sound like a nerd. If you ask me this question like an hour, it'll be hilarious.
No, you know what? I just ask these questions just so people get to know everyone and just a laid back
No,
conversation, and it
no,
makes it harder
yeah.
than the original ones.
No, honestly, and it's I love this style of interview because the challenge for me has been I'm not a politician, and I don't want to be a politician. I want to be a great leader that way, but I don't aspire to be a politician. So with that said, I can't shape. I've struggled with, okay, keep what you say, keep it into 4 minute. You might have 4 minutes, you might have 2 minutes. Don't give too much, but be positive. And that's not who I am. I mean, again, I probably went 30 minutes, felt like it lasted 4 minutes, but it's I
Well,
enjoy these type of
and that's why,
conversations.
and that's why we have the extended period, so we can get everything and let our audience and viewers know what's going on, no matter what the situation is. But Ryan, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Yeah, thank you, and we appreciate every bit of support we can get, and we appreciate your vote on May 4th.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you,
Thank
everyone,
you.
for watching us. Please join us with every Sunday for the speaker series presented by Sherman Creative. Check us out on anthonyvspano.com for more podcast interviews and announcements. Have a good night, everyone. Stay safe. God bless.